Hi, this is Joey O'Neill from Sound Systems Incorporated. We are in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and can be reached at 843-602-5883. Today we are at Holden Chapel Beach, at Holden Beach, obviously, North Carolina, and we have replaced a 12-channel analog mixer with a Behringer X32 compact. We've also installed some line array speakers and removed some of the old existing speakers, redid some stage wiring for them, wireless microphones and such. So today all I'm going to do is give you a general overview of how we have set the mixer up for their particular service. There's not a right or wrong way, but what we try to do is duplicate what the church had so it would have an ease of operation for the multiple volunteer sound engineers at the church. We're using a digital mixer, and the reason we chose this particular mixer is it gives the church a starting point. Once the system settles in and they get everything the way they like it, they can actually store presets, and we can always go back to that one preset, so we have a good starting point. So people coming in, putting their hands all on the mixer, turning knobs, all that kind of stuff, we can always go back to a 0 point. Now, the general layout of the X32 is as such. We have 8 channels, another 8 channels, channels 1 through 8, channels 9 through 16, and we can expand up to 17 through 24, or actually up to 32 channels. Plus we have what we call auxiliary inputs, and auxiliary inputs are things such as maybe a CD player or a DVD player, something I didn't want to occupy a channel. But I'm trying to keep everything as simple as possible. And the reason we want to do that is, again, the church had an old analog mixer and they only used quite a few channels. So here's what happens. When we turn the system on, first thing we'll have to do, the master volume control will be down at 0. So when we turn the system on, bring the master volume up to this point that says 0, or we have it called as unity gain, and that will be your starting point for the sound system. Over here you'll see a green light, and underneath it, you might not be able to read it in the video, it says channels 1 through 8. This says channels 9 through 16, 17 through 24, and 25 through 32. These are expansion modules that we can add later on. So for example, if I push inputs, the first button here, which is already pushed, channels 1 through 8, then this becomes my channels 1 through 8. If I push the second button, 9 through 16, then this becomes my channels 9 through 16, and so on and so on. But there's an easier way to operate this system. If we come over and push channels 1 through 8 at the same time we push channels 9 through 16, then now my mixer is set up exactly like the church's previous mixer, where I have channel 1 as wireless 1, wireless 2 and channel 2, wireless 3 and channel 3. We've installed 2 additional choir microphones suspended over the choir. Channels 5, 6, and 7 right now are vacant, empty for future growth. Channel 8 is a feed coming from the fellowship hall, and if I turn this up, we should hear a little bit of ground noise, and the reason is because we've shut that system down in the fellowship hall, so the circuit's been broken, causing us a ground hum. Once you turn the system on over there, that goes away, and you hear what's happening in the fellowship hall. Channel 9 is the lectern. Channel 10 is the piano left on stage, facing the stage, channel left, or the black piano. Channel right is the piano on the right, or the brown piano. Channels 12 and 13 are going to be relabeled and are going to be bells and a utility microphone up on stage. Channel 14 is the pulpit, and channel 15 and 16 is our music playback. We chose to put the music playback into 2 channels because down the road I'm sure the church would probably like to use a split track, or a split track meaning that you'd have instruments on one side and vocals on the other side. Now I've just started a CD player down below in my rack, and I'll use this as part of the demonstration. If you can tell in the video, yes you can, that these red lights illuminate. These are mute switches, and when I turn those on, my CD player plays through the house system. There again, the reason we did it in 2 channels is because a split track will have instruments on one side, vocals on the other side, and should the choir perform with a split track tape, we could mute the vocals or mute the instruments if they wanted to rehearse and it just makes it a little easier to work with. Plus, we had extra channels to burn. Okay, my suggestion is when a microphone is not being used, it might be best just to go ahead and mute the channels. For example, wireless 1, mute, wireless 2, mute, wireless 3, mute, choir, so forth, so on, all the way down. And then when someone gets up to speak at the lectern or the pulpit, then obviously we can go to the pulpit, unmute the channel, they can speak in the microphone, be heard. Once they finish, we can decide to mute it and do the same thing with the lectern. Many times for recording purposes, I will keep the choir microphones maybe on, but maybe pulled slightly back, because that way we have an ear in the room, because we're also doing a DVD recording. Okay, so let's talk about the mixer in general. When you look at it, you go, oh, it's a bunch of knobs. I don't really know what to do with it, but I'm going to use half of the CD player here as one of my examples. First of all, I'm going to mute all the microphones, put everything back to where it was. Oh, also I can mute the main output once church is over. If I like, I just shut the whole system down. And there are other items over here that I'm not going to get into any detail. I'm just trying to make the system up and running for the church to use for the next week till we can do some real hands-on training. Let's take, for example, the CD player. Right now I have some music playing, and I'm going to unmute just one channel of it. I'm going to bring up that channel, and now we hear music playing through the audio system. Again, I can mute it, unmute it. And let's say that I'd like to do some changes to it. I might want to change the equalizer, or I may want to change the gain, or I may want to make it louder or put a compressor, all these kind of things on there. This is one of the most important buttons on the mixer, and this button is called Select. And once I push this button that says Select, anything I do up into this area is going to affect only that one channel that I have highlighted with the Select button. For example, CD player. I've selected the channel, and if I would like to do things such as add phantom power, the church currently owns some nice handheld microphones that require phantom power. So if the church took one of their microphones, plugged it into one of the additional plates, we would have to turn on phantom power, which is 48 volts, in order for that microphone to work. Phantom power, this button here that says 48V, should always be used, always, for the lectern, for the pulpit, and we have 2 condenser microphones on the piano, some seducer microphones on piano left and piano right. Also, the choir mic in channel 4 always has to have the 48 volt phantom power supply on. Okay, but getting back to my controls, let's say that I wanted to mess around with the CD player and make it change the equalizer or do anything to it. I push the select button, and now anything over here takes place only for that CD player. This is the gain control. This is called a low frequency roll off, which if I activate this and I push the view switch, then my display screen turns into a low frequency roll off. Low frequency roll off means I get rid of some of the roar, rumble, or the excessive bass that may be in a track or a microphone or someone's voice even. This section here is the equalizer. Equalizer meaning I can adjust the bass, mid-range, treble, giving it whatever terminology we want to use, warmth, sibilance, clarity, getting rid of harshness, all of those types of things. I can depress the EQ switch, and again, I'm still only working with the CD player, and I can hit view, and I get a nice little display of the equalizer. I don't know if we can see it with the glare on the mixer. The thing I like most about this particular mixer is once I depress the EQ switch and I hit this button that says view, I have a real-time analyzer showing me the frequencies that are dancing around, again, only for this particular channel, which is my CD player. And where this really comes into play is, let's say I had somebody with a lavalier microphone or a headset microphone, and for some reason I was getting a ping or a squeal, a little bit of feedback, a little bit of just noise I didn't like. This display would tell me what the dominant frequency was, and by hitting this equalizer section would allow me to go through and adjust and bring things up or down. So this equalizer is very friendly, and having the real-time analyzer is ideal. It really just takes all the guesswork out. All right. I have set everything up for a basic unity gain and meaning that the pulpit mics and the lectern mic and the wireless mics, that they all sound relatively the same. The church had existing Sennheiser microphones, so we purposely set up wireless number one to be their main headset. They have a couple older Sennheiser headsets. I've brought another smaller, low-profile headset for them to use. So wireless number one is labeled, of course, on the wireless pack as wireless number one, and it is their primary headset microphone. I also have a handheld 300 series microphone tied to wireless number one, and I've labeled it as backup. Now, just because we have two wirelesses doesn't mean we can use both simultaneously, because they are sharing one particular receiver. So if we had someone up using the wireless number one headset, and for some reason we had to use the wireless number one handheld microphone, we would have to turn the headset off or the belt pack off for just a couple seconds and then turn the other unit on. We can't share one receiver with two transmitters. So wireless number one is our primary unit. I went ahead and set up wireless number two as a backup headset, and then wireless number three is a handheld microphone only. Excuse me. Choir microphones are in number four, and we have pulled a tether string all the way across the congregation and installed two Shure MX 202s. We use the supercardioid mic, so they pick up a little more directional, and they're in channel 4. Like I said before, 5, 6, and 7 are open, and should we want to hear what's going on in the fellowship hall, if there's a presentation or a conference, we can unmute the fellowship hall and turn that up, and we will hear what's happening, obviously, in the fellowship hall. Lectern and pulpit, which are in channels 9 and 14, are going to be the primary use, along with wirelesses 1, 2, and 3. I imagine they will be used, and we have a variety of speakers here, so it's probably difficult to get a very consistent sound due to we have a different priest or a pastor every weekend. That's something we're just going to have to work through. Channels 10 and 11 are the two Seducer piano mics that are mounted underneath the soundboard, and we can turn those on and off as we wish. Currently, we are making a CD recording, and we're making a DVD recording. I now have, for ease of operation, and not to have a lot of monitor sends and auxiliary sends and bus sends, I went ahead and just set it up to be a real simple operation. Anything that comes out of the main output of the house sound system, I have directed this monitor level control, which is right here on top, and it says monitor level. This is what actually goes to our CD recorder. I'm going to leave it up about 3/4, and it feeds a Tascam CDRW 900, which is a very nice CD recorder. We are also making a recording to the DVD. We have a standard consumer-grade DVD recorder, and there's a couple of ADIO cameras in here. So I'm going to let the headphone signal, since we don't use headphones here, I'm just going to let that signal feed out to the DVD recorder. Trying to keep it real simple. So there again, the monitor level here, this is the volume that goes out to my CD recorder, and we'll show you the CD recorder on another video. And this goes output to my DVD. So I'm going to turn these up accordingly, kind of leave them at 3/4. The phones is going to be a little hotter because there's a preamp in it. And we're going to leave it at that. Okay, not to get into any major detail, just a general overview again, and in review, this is channels 1 through 8. If I push this button, this becomes channels 9 through 16. These are the expansion channels, which we can add later on. And this section here is the auxiliary input, which would allow us to have a USB input, an RCA input, any other type of input that we may need. But I have purposely taken everything out of that and combined it to the channels so that the church has an easy operation and can see exactly what's going on at all times. There are onboard effects in here, reverbs, delays. I have not set up any of those on purpose. And there are also outputs going to a couple other things that we didn't have other levels to go to, and that is called a bus. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push the second button here. The first one says Group DCA 1 through 8, and this says Bus 1 through 8. When I push this bus switch, my buses, which is just another word for another output. We've installed some stage monitors up by the choir area, and due to the construction and the conduit configurations, we had to use we had to use powered monitors on stage. So I have bus 1 listed as a stage monitor output, and the purpose of a stage monitor is that the seated choir can hear the lectern microphone, the pulpit microphone, any of the wireless microphones, as the priest and speakers generally obviously face the congregation. The choir, their backs turn to the choir, and sometimes it's difficult for them to hear. So the purpose of a stage monitor is for us to redirect any microphone or any sound back to the stage so that they can hear what's going on. I'm also sending a signal out to the fellowship hall. We have one coming to here, and I'm also sending one to there. And we also have a hearing impaired device, which I purposely set up as off of a bus send. The nice thing about the bus sends is that I can change things very quickly. Let's say that on the stage monitors, for example, someone would like to hear the lectern microphone. So the easy operation for that is, first of all, I would push the bus 1 through 8, which is illuminated here. Then I would go to what I want to control. Remember in the first section we talked about you have to hit the select button for what you want to control. So I hit bus 1 through 8. There's my stage monitor. So I want to make a change to my stage monitor. I hit select, and then one very nice thing on this mixer, I can hit sends on fader. Now sends on fader means that I can take the fader and slide it up, and it will send sound back to the stage monitors. So, for example, if I wanted to turn the lectern microphone up, there's the lectern mic, there's the pulpit mic, this is the music. I can turn it up in the stage monitor going to the stage. Of course, the song's over, of course. Or wireless microphone 1, 2, or 3. So I can independently select very quickly what goes to my stage monitors. Most important, and I have a difficult time remembering this myself, is I always have to turn off sends on fader so that I make sure I'm back in my mixing console. Okay, that's an up and running, very quick Cliff Notes version of the mixer. One thing to remember, when you turn the system on, take the master volume, which will go to 0, which will go to the very bottom, to infinity, bring it up to 0, which is the unity gain control, and then make sure these 2 buttons are depressed, which gets you up and operational. At that point, you can decide to mute, turn on, or off whatever microphones you would decide to use. Okay, we'll go into more detail with it, but this is just something I wanted to get to the church members and let them get up and running. I'm Joey O'Neill from Sound Systems Incorporated in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and we can be reached at 843-602-5883. Thank you.